Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Comedy. I'm Makayla Angshed, here with Connor Ford to talk about his career in comedy. What got you started in comedy, and when did you know you wanted to pursue it?
What got me started in comedy? I think I took an improv class with my dad and my sister. Just at the Second City, they offer classes there, and I had such a good time with it that I just kept going and sticking with it. And then eventually it was just like, I'm doing so much in comedy that I was just like, oh, okay, well, I didn't really know that I wanted to do comedy until like my sixth improv class that I didn't know anybody in. And my dad was like, seems like you really want to do this. I'm like, why? He's like, well, we dropped out like 4 classes ago and I don't think you noticed. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, that's great. Why do you think Chicago is known for being the comedy capital, and what makes comedy in Chicago so special?
Chicago is the capital of improv comedy, is what I would say. They're the best because they're really good. They're really, really good at improv. We're phenomenal here for improv. We're pretty good for roast battles too, if you stand up or anything like that. New York's the king of stand-up. Like New York's the comedy central, and then LA is where all the famous people go. But Chicago is a phenomenal market to be born into, because it's like if you were raised in Nashville, for example, it's like you can either become a musician or nothing else. Like if you want to do something famous, there's no comedy scene in Nashville. So Chicago's, I would say, either number 2 or 3, if depending on how you feel about it. But it's my favorite because I have a support structure here, including family. And then the Second City is just like such a great tool, along with all the other small venues around here that just like are cool with you just coming in and being like, hey, I'd like to put on a show here. And they're like, here's the form, fill it out, and you're good, which is super useful.
Yeah, why do you think like the Second City is just so great at what it does and just in Chicago?
They're run like a business, so they really like that. So they're smart enough to know that it's really easy for a theater to shut down. Like the most famous theater in the world can shut down if they forget that they're a business sometimes. So they're smart enough to know that we need to market, we need to advertise. When we do shows, we need to take a part of the money, but like still support the local artists and the local people and stuff. So they're very smart business because they know to balance that stuff. And then just comedically, the number of people that go through there is such a gigantic number that they just have good people who recognize talent. So it's like when I did my audition for the conservatory, it was me and like 160 people just auditioning to pay them money to take classes. Wow. So it's like, okay, this is a pretty smart business model. Like, yeah. So they're very smart company.
Mm-hmm. What does comedy mean to you?
I mean, it's just the business of comedy is something to be taken seriously, but comedy is in fact the exact opposite. So for me, comedy is just having a good time, screwing around, goofing off with friends, doing improv, doing stand-up. Comedy's a good time. The business of comedy is salesmanship, taking opportunities and doing all this stuff. And anybody who tells you that like comedy should just be fun, if they're famous, they got lucky, and if they're not, that's why. It's at the end of the day, there's a business side of comedy, which I like. And like I was a marketing major in college for a while. It was fun. Like it interests me. I like analytics and data and stuff like that. And then I have the side of comedy where it's just jokes and it's just fun.
Yeah, what's like your favorite part about comedy, like doing it? Would you say, because you just briefly touched on like just hanging out with friends, is that it?
One of the best times you're ever gonna have in your life is at high school lunch table when you're all sitting around in a circle just screwing around with each other. That's like even the biggest comics, Bill Burr, John Mulaney, all them, they still talk about like, yeah, that's pretty much where it starts for most people, is when you're just ripping on your friends in a circle. So it's like the most fun is when you can find that in other places. Like podcasts are great because it's just like get a few friends in a circle, everybody screws around, and then record it and release it, and people will listen for some reason.
Yeah. Have you like performed at multiple comedy places? And if so, like what's your favorite one?
The Ashbury Coffee House in Willow Springs, which now that I have mentioned them out loud, I have to give them a link to this. So we have to remember. But the Ashbury Coffee House in Willow Springs is literally my stomping ground. It's where I grew up. It's my comedy bar, my comedy shrine for whoever else is, because I can go up in a room with a bunch of people facing the same direction and get good laughs consistently. So it's where I take all my material when I start doing stand-up. They have an improv show there. They have it's a really, really good place. So I would say that is my place.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so as you were talking about just like that being your favorite place, is there like any recommendations you have to those who want to see a comedy show once things are like normal?
Yeah, that's the big one. If you want to see some absolute banger comics, go to the Comedy Bar. They have an open mic that they do following right after a show. And to get on that mic, you have to get there at 3:00. You have to wait till 5, and then they'll check in with you again at 8. And then the show starts at 9, and then you go on at 10. So you have to be there for like 8 straight hours just to get up at this open mic. So the people who actually wait there to do the open mic, because it's in front of a full crowd, it's in front of like 100 people. So the people who are actually dedicated enough to wait are just murderers. They're hilarious. They're so good. Murderers means very good.
Yes.
Comedy, by the way. I hope that we knew this at this point. Otherwise, I look like a serial killer.
No. Yeah. Briefly touching on COVID again, like has it affected you with your comedy?
Good story on that one. So I was just starting to do road comedy. Like I was just starting to book gigs out of state right when comedy hit. And I was down on myself about that for so long because I was like, I was just about to get on the road. I was just about to like start making enough money to think about quitting my job. I have an amazing job. I'd never quit. But like I was getting to the point where I was like, I might actually be able to quit my job to just do comedy all the time. And then COVID hit and I just took a massive step backwards and I was beating myself up over it for so long. And then one of my friends was like, well, what if you had just quit your job? And then COVID came around and I'm like, you know what? Could be worse. Could be way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's the best advice you've received when performing or just starting out?
Be yourself. It sounds like ridiculous advice that they give everybody in every stage of life, but on stage people know you can hear what's rehearsed, you can hear what's fake, you can hear what's not real. And some comics, like the way they speak in real life is performative. So when they go up on stage, you hear that performance and you'll recognize that as real. But a lot of people don't speak performatively and then they try and go up and do a performative comedy where everything's like written to the T and really done. And it's like, but that's not how you're funny in life. So if you want to be funny, if you want to start doing stand-up, if you want to start doing improv, just be however you're funny in real life, try and do that on stage, pretty much.
Wow, yeah, that's great advice. And going back to advice, for those who want to do comedy and don't know where to start, what do you think they should do, or do you have any advice for them?
Open mics and the improv jams. If you're in Chicago, if you're not in Chicago, still open mics. They're everywhere. Just like less. But I have a friend who started in comedy 3 months ago, and in the middle of COVID, and he is a murderer. He is murderer meaning that,
Yes.
He is hilarious in just 3 months because what he did was his name is Mar McFly. I think that's his Twitter handle too. What he did was he just took how he was funny in real life, which was just roasting people. So he did the lunch table thing. He'd always make fun of his friends and stuff like that. And then when he goes up on stage, since he's a new comic and he doesn't have a lot of material, all he does is just roast the audience. So and it murders every time. It kills so hard. So if you're a new comic, look at open mics, improv jams, classes. I wouldn't say stand-up classes because stand-up is impossible to teach. You kind of gotta do it in front of an audience. But like an improv class is really good. I've taken thousands of dollars of improv classes. But it's just like find the closest you are to funny in real life and then take that wherever you go. The hardest thing you're gonna do is stand up for the first time. That's rough. the first 12 times I did an open mic, I bombed, and I counted. It was 12. It was bad, real bad.
Oh no.
It happens. You bomb. The best people. Bill Burr always tells this story. He's like, yeah, I bombed the other day. And I'm like, you're Bill Burr. You bombed on Tuesday? He's like, yeah, it's Wednesday. I bombed on Tuesday. I'm like, oh, I guess it's just part of it. So get used to that.
Do you have advice for like writing comedy or just like stand-up or sketches or things like that?
Just do it. Just write. I mean, I only write stand-up when it hits me, because that's kind of my style of stand-up is it's got to come from somewhere super real, because it's just how comically I work. And I mean, 5 years from now, it might be different. I might write more, I might do this or that, but you just got to find out what works for you. So for stand-up comedy, I write when I think of a joke, just in the middle of doing stuff, and then I think it's good enough to write it down, and then I'll write it down, and then I'll take it up on stage. And then if it does well on stage, or if it does terribly on stage, but I still feel like there's something there, I'll take it up on stage a few more times and see what happens. And then for writing sketch and writing like plays, because I do plays at the Second City and musicals and whatnot. For writing all the other type of comedy stuff, I would say carve out time for that. So, I mean, obviously don't write for improv, but carve out time for sketch or for writing like anything long form or stuff like that. You need to have a time where you sit down and do it. But personally for me, I don't really carve out time for stand-up. It just kind of happens. Like I'll be at the grocery store, I'll think of something funny, and I'll just stop and write at the grocery store. And my fiance hates it because I'll be in the middle of. She'll be like, "Can you go get pickles?" And I'm gone. I'm writing in my phone, and it's just a tunnel vision. I can't hear or see anything else until I get the bit down. And then I look back up, and I'm like, "What do you say?" And she's like, "I'm going to hit you." I really am.
Yeah, but that's passion, and that's the beautiful thing. Not trying to put you on the spot, but do you have like a little bit that you could do right now that, keep in mind, still appropriate?
No. I'm a dirty comic.
Okay.
I do improv clean. I do the plays I do at the Second City are all clean. I had a sketch show when I was in college that was all clean, but I'm not like my stand-up or anything that I would deliver right now is dirty.
Okay.
I mean, okay, I think that they should change tablecloths to tableclothes. I mean, it's one letter, it's just right there, but that's the cleanest I have.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, but yeah, maybe it's good that you don't do a bit right now.
Yep.
So I know like the Second City right now is going through like some like being up for sale or something. Can you talk more about that and how you feel about it or what's going on?
All right, I'll give you all the gossip.
Okay.
So, what's the one down the street? There's one down the street. I forget. It's literally the second biggest in the city, which is funny because there's the Second City and then there's this one. It's not.
IO Chicago.
I am. IO. Yeah, IO went up for sale because like COVID happened and then they got hit with like racial allegations and just that on top of that, and they're just like, okay, we're out. And then since they went, some other smaller theaters went too. I forget which ones. Like the Playground was up for a second, and there was another one that like caught some flack or just ran out of money, and they dipped too, but just all smaller than IO. And then the Second City started getting some allegations too, for a little bit there. But they kind of like weathered the storm. They're still doing online classes and stuff like that. And then at some point that ad selling the Second City just kind of like posted up online, and for a ridiculous amount of money, like $100 million. And it was like, what I think happened is that the Second City is just like, well, yeah, if somebody's going to pay 4 times the actual price of this building to buy it right now, we'll absolutely sell it. But I don't think they're going a penny under what they were like selling it for, because they saw like COVID happening, other cities or other places getting like a lot of allegations and stuff, and then they started getting allegations, and they're like, okay, we're gonna be fine. They survived a fire, they survived all this stuff, and I mean like what is it? Saturday night live writers have like come out against the Second City and been like, yeah, some people there have done bad things, and they fired the people who did it, and they're trying their best. Of course they are. But it's like, with so many things piling on at once, they just threw out a lifeline, and we're like, if we can just sell now and call it a year, somebody else will take over and do what we're doing in the same venue anyways. So if we can get out with everything, we will. And then nobody bid on like $100 million bid. So they were just like, okay, we'll keep doing us. They're going to be fine. But
okay, yeah. I remember seeing that go down. I was like, oh no, what's going to happen? Because I actually,
out of venues.
Back March 7th, I actually took my first class at the Second City.
Nice.
And then the next week it closed. And I wanted to go there and go into those facilities and just see how it is. So I decided not to do online classes because things were still new. But now they're like, you should probably do those online classes. And I'm like, yeah, I probably
don't.
No? Okay, well, that's good. Okay, good. Because I've taken improv over Zoom, and it's not that great.
No,
it's not that great. No.
It's real bad. Everybody asks me, they're like, what are you going to do? But what are you going to do when it moves online, when comedy moves online? I'm like, oh, I won't do comedy. That's fine. It's like, it doesn't work. Maybe it works for some people. For really performative comics, sure. I'm more of, I need to be there with people, and live reactions are awesome. But improv will be back at the Second City. They're gonna be okay. They can get a loan for 4 times what they're worth, no problem, because they're gonna make it back. Especially once after 8 months or 9 months, however long it is, by the time we actually get back to doing stuff. Once you can sit back in a Second City theater again, people are going to be running over each other to get tickets to shows. I actually had a show opening March 18th, and then everything shut down on March 15th.
Oh no!
We were at our final rehearsal before the show. We were at the final rehearsal. We had run through halfway through the rehearsal because we were doing top to bottom then because the show was on Friday or whatever. And the director stopped us halfway through, and we're like, it's a day before the show. If you're stopping us halfway through, we need to cancel this. And he's like, no, the Second City just canceled us. Oh, no. And I'm like, okay, I guess we go home.
Yeah, that's like the worst ever. I do think so. With comedy being online, I've seen some YouTube live streams of people doing improv, and it's like even people like Amy Poehler and stuff, and they're like, gods. But it's just still it, as the kids say, it hits different. It's just
you can't say as the kids say. You can't say that. As I say.
Yeah, I don't really say it that often. I don't know many kid terms, but I don't know.
Right. Do you remember the one Saturday Night Live episode they did on Zoom? Do you remember that?
They did 2 episodes.
Oh, they did 2?
Yeah.
They weren't good. They were bad.
Well, I am I love SNL so much, so I never say anything bad about it. I just think it's unique, and I think it's cool because it shows a part of history, definitely for sure. But I think they've come back though. These last few episodes are good. Yeah.
Now they're fine. Yeah. Now they're okay. They're doing A-okay right now. But when they were trying to do the Zoom ones, it was like, it's so different. You would think that you'd be able to just handle the Zoom, but everybody's got to get used to the new camera angles because they're all the same angle now. It's hard. It's just, there's so much stuff going on with online comedy. And it's just especially online improv, just that millisecond of lag can destroy a joke. I wait until things go back to normal, because I just had graduated the conservatory. My final conservatory show was supposed to be done at the main stage of the Second City in front of however many people that place fits. Instead, we did it online on Zoom. It was so sad. Yeah. But once the conservatory ends, there's always that next step at the Second City, which is the good part. So what I'm just doing is hanging out, doing other comedy. A podcast is a great thing to start right now if you like comedy. And then once the Second City opens back up, then I'll go on to the track after the conservatory, which is, oh God, I forget what it is. There's a house coat, that's what it is, at the Second City. So that's cool. But yeah, I would recommend for you, take all the improv classes, and then if you like it, A through E, and then if you like that, go into the conservatory. You can get in. I got in on my first audition, but Tina Fey got in on her third. So
Wow.
yeah. Oh, I had an easy audition group. Sometimes you just get easy ones. I'm not saying I'm better than Tina Fey. I'm saying not a lot of people auditions for my year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you touch on like what the conservatory is? I feel like maybe I know, but just.
So there's improv level A through E at the Second City, and that's just like the basic level classes that everybody has to take. And then you don't have to take it, but that's what everybody takes. And then once you get through A through E, you have a final show, and then conservatory auditions start up. And the conservatory is a more advanced version of that. So they really take off the kitty gloves, because all the people who are going to the conservatory are like, they want to be paid for improv one day. So you have to audition to get in, and then if you get in, then you still have to pay them for classes, which, I mean, great business model, but sucks for me. So you take the classes there, and it's just like, it's improv, it's honors improv, pretty much. It's AP improv is what you're taking. So it's just way more difficult, and they'll really break down your scenes, and you'll spend like an hour of class not using words and doing scenes. Like, they'll take super specific things and will blow them way up, so that when you go on stage and you're never gonna have a problem again with your object work. You're never gonna have a problem with asking questions. You're never gonna have a problem with like saying no in scenes and stuff like that. So they take the tenets of improv and they just grind them into you. And then when you graduate the conservatory, you can go on to house co, which is the next step that I'm on, which is they pay you finally to do improv. It's not much, but it's just like for your time. Since it's kind of like a token, since you've gotten good enough that like you've gone through the ranks and all this stuff. They're finally like, okay, here's your paying shows. You get a cut of the tickets or whatever it is. I think that's how it works, at least.
Sounds great. Yeah. Okay. So I know that there's kind of like so I love comedy and stuff. I mean, that's why I'm doing this. But I know there's like kind of almost like bikers versus surfers or whatever, like movie West Side Story, whatever reference I'm trying to make.
Groundlings versus.
Yes. But no, I'm talking about like improv versus stand-up. Like they're all like, you know, like which one do you like more?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. Stand-up pays me more, so and I could do improv and stand-up, but I mean, have you seen Middleditch and Schwartz?
Yes.
So good.
I know.
And then,
yeah.
And then you'll be like, there are stand-up specials that there's some phenomenal stand-up specials, but like, it's so hard to choose between improv. I'm thankful that I don't have to, because I will continue to do both. If I had to choose one, I think I'd go with improv. I don't think I'm going to go as far with improv, because they're just more improvisers, and there are people that are insane talents, and it's like more of a direct pipeline to SNL if you go through improv and through the Second City and stuff like that. So it's like it's stiffer competition in improv, but I don't know. It might be that I haven't done improv in 8 months, but I think I would have to go with improv, just because it's like, it's a lot of fun. It's off the cuff. There's no preparation. You just have to be like in a good headspace when you walk in that day. So it's not a lot of legwork, which is awesome. But stand up, I think, is the thing that I'm going to go significantly farther in, because like, despite pandemic, I'm still able to get paid for it. And Chicago is a nightmare market for improv. You have to grind to get real money for improv in Chicago. But it's still like, it's still great. It's a lot of fun.
I was talking with my cousin one time, and she was like, what happened in your childhood that made you want to be a comedian? And I was like, I'm doing it for the money, sis. And she didn't get it. And I was like, you don't get money.
No, it's great. No, I don't get that. Everybody's like, your childhood was bad, right? I was like, no, not even a little. I don't get that stigma. And I think it used to be like that. It was like, if you wanted to be a comic, then you had to have a messed up childhood. But now I'm just like, no, I mean, most of my comedy influences are like, they're pretty okay. Jerry Seinfeld had a pretty good growing up, I bet. I don't think he was a really damaged guy.
Yeah, but everyone's different, so you never really do know.
I do have friends who are like, It's such a thing in comedy where I have friends who are like, oh, I'm not going to go to therapy because I'll stop being funny. And I'm like, no, do that, dude.
Yeah.
That is a piece of advice I will give to everybody. You're probably funnier the healthier you are. Honestly, being weird isn't something to be solved. That's just part of you. If you like the Twilight books, you like the Twilight books. And if you like Karl Marx, you like Karl Marx. Don't try and change that about yourself. Lean into it. It gets way better if you lean into it.
And pulling something back from our earlier question about being yourself with stand-up or just comedy in general, what's your best advice for someone just trying to be themselves rather than faking it?
The way that I found for trying to be yourself, the best way to do that for stand-up is I would always open with a story that I didn't script at all and it was not a joke. Not super serious story or anything like that, but just me telling somebody why I did comedy. Or I used to tell this story. I had, after a set I bombed, I walk off of stage and somebody asked me, why am I smiling? And I'm like, well, because that was still better than anything else I did today. I still had more fun doing terrible today, but I was able to do stand-up, and it's very fun for me. So I would open telling stories that were not funny, but they were very real. And then you just get into that, you get used to just showing raw emotion on stage, and then later you make that funny. So it's you have to, I think it's more important to be real first on stage and then be funny. But once you're real, it's very important to be funny. It's kind of the whole thing.
Stand-up places, how would you begin? Where would you go? Where would you start? What would you do?
Asbury Coffee House, Willow Springs, Wednesdays. It changes. It's Wednesday night always, but it changes so often. Wednesday night at 8, I think, once things open back up. There's the Comedy Shrine. That's on Tuesdays and Thursdays, also at 8 o'clock. This is for stand-up, but the Comedy Shrine also does improv. So does the Asbury as well. Take classes at the Second City. It's everything you think you're supposed to do. That. Everybody's like, what do you do? It's no, the initial shock of starting to do a new hobby that's also just as open and as exposed as comedy and stand-up is the thing that you need to get over. That's the really big hump, is starting to do open mics. First open mic is going to scare you senseless. Your first improv show is going to scare you. That's the part you need to get over. It's not where do I go and what do I do? Go to open mics, do open mics, continue to do open mics. And then when you need to get to the next stage, just ask somebody who's got a little bit more experience than you. Be like, okay, I did a bunch of open mics. How do I get booked on shows? And it's there's Facebook groups for that. So it's if you're just starting off, find an open mic. You can Google Comedy of Chicago, and it has a list of every open mic in Chicago. It's 400 mics. You can go there, and then if you want to do improv, go to the Second City and just ask around, and you can just get on an improv team. They also have a jam night on Tuesdays. There's boards around, and if you go to the directory at the Second City, the thing in the front, and you just ask them, I would like to do improv. What venues do you have or opportunities for this? And they'll point you in the direction of classes, workshops, the jam, and other stuff. So
Cool.
it's available. It's out there. It's just it's harder to do it for the first time than it is to figure it out how to do it. It's scary.
How would you say with time? So the time frame of your first stand up, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, how long should it be?
Chicago's all 5s, so
Okay.
Everything's 5 minutes around here. You can go into the suburbs and you can get a little bit more time, but usually it's a bar show, or bar shows are bad. People don't all face the same direction. That's the best thing in stand-up comedy is look for a place where everybody's facing the right way, because sometimes they'll do bar shows where it's stage here, bar there, so everybody's facing that way and the comic's here. Mm-hmm. And then also if the bar is facing the wrong way, hearing somebody do comedy and watching somebody do comedy are such different things that if the bar is facing the wrong way, you're gonna lose the crowd a lot. And you lose the crowd in comedy. That's just something that happens when you do stand up. You got if I'm the first person to tell you this, then everybody's been disillusioning you. You're gonna bomb. if you do stand up comedy, you're gonna bomb. It just happens, but you learn to love it.
Mm-hmm. How do you know how to write it? So how do you know when it's funny, and who do you test it out on first, and
you bomb a lot. That's the way. So especially after COVID, I've been bombing a lot because I haven't been able to get up on stage and all my material is new. So when you first go up the first time, you're gonna have 5 minutes of material, and it's gonna you're no matter how good you write it, it's not gonna go over as well as you want it to. That's just a fact. But then you listen to that set, you record the set, you listen to it or watch it or whatever you want to do, and then you pick apart what you did right and what you did wrong. You rewrite that 5, keeping all of that in mind, and then you take it up again, and then you bomb again, and then you listen to it again, and then you repeat that process. For me, that process took me 12 times before I got it, and I didn't get it like I did well the 13th time. I got a laugh the 13th time. The first 12 times, nobody laughed. And then the 13th time I went up, I got one laugh at one joke. And then I listened to that set, I figured out why they laughed, I applied it to all my other jokes, and then the next time I got 3 laughs. And I just kept doing that.
That's great, yeah. Well, I mean, great once you got it, but it's
yeah.
Man.
Well, that's not how it goes for everybody. I was just I've always had really bad stage fright, which is why I do stand-up, is because I always do stuff that scares me. It's fun. I free climb. It's weird. But that's why I did stand-up, is because it scared me. So getting over that stage fright was a big hurdle for me. It took a bunch of shows. But people who don't have that stage fright, they just have different demons to face. Like my friend who is a very good comic, but he's only been doing it for 3 months, all he can do is crowd work. He kills with crowd work. He's hilarious with crowd work. But you can't send crowd work to a booker and be like, hey, pay me. They're gonna be like, no, that's crowd work. Everybody has good crowd work nights. They don't know that he does crowd work good every night. It's just, so his hurdle is that he's gonna have to learn to write material, which is fine. Everybody's got their own cross to bear. You just gotta listen to your sets, figure out what your problem is, and then actively work to fix it. It's a lot of cage matches with your inner demons, and it's fun. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, how do you get back up once you're basically everyone has a little demon inside them being you're nothing? So how do you get over that?
Just do it.
Yeah.
It helps. Inviting friends to go to shows is very important, but if you have inviting friends to see you do stand-up is warn them that you're going to do badly if it's your first time or whatever your process is. But if I invite people to go, then I'm definitely going to be there, and I'm definitely going to show up, because that's what makes me go, is if somebody's counting on me to be there, then I'll definitely go. And then invite your stand-up friends as well, because if you do stand-up long enough, you'll just make friends with other stand-up comics. But invite them to go to shows with you, and they're going to cancel a lot, but you just got to commit to go even if they do cancel. And it's open mics are fun. If you go there to have a good time and you're trying to have comedy, it's a fun night out still, but you're a little bit there to work too. So it's a working vacation.
All right.
A lot of stand-up comedy questions are just, you've got to do it. It's a bad thing, but you have to do it. How do you get up after a bomb? It's just, it's not going to be fun, but you have to. If you want to do it.
Yeah, this was great, and thank you for doing this. Yeah.
Fantastic. How can I find this?
I will send you a link. It will be on rbtv.tv at some point once I'm done editing. So.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so how do I end the recording? Okay, I'm just gonna say goodbye now.
Okay, cool.
Bye. Thank you.
Should I just jump off? Am I good to go?
Yes.
All right. Thanks. This was a blast.
Yeah. Bye. I would like to thank Connor for being on Let's Talk Comedy. I'm Makayla Angshed. See you next time.